The video begins by setting the stage for a dramatic moment in American politics. A federal judge recently blocked a key deportation order from President Donald Trump's administration, which led to immediate and fierce backlash from the president. Instead of responding through his usual method, Twitter, Trump decided to take direct and bold action. As the situation unfolded, Trump, seated in the Oval Office, is described as calm but visibly frustrated. His press secretary, Caroline Driscoll, stands by nervously, aware of how tense the moment is. The news ticker scrolling on the screen informs Trump that a federal judge has ruled against his policy, leaving his administration in contempt. The atmosphere in the room is heavy, and Trump's eyes lock on the screen in front of him. Trump's frustration isn't just with the ruling itself, but with the larger implications it has for his authority as president. The video conveys the feeling of a brewing storm as Trump reflects on the situation, saying the judge has dared him to act out, knowing it will allow his opponents to accuse him of dictatorial behavior. His frustration is evident as he prepares to take the confrontation to the highest level, challenging the judiciary directly. In response to Judge Boasberg's ruling, Trump's frustration boils over as he reacts sharply. He is determined to defend his administration's immigration policies, believing that the courts are unfairly blocking his executive orders. Trump's press secretary, Caroline Driscoll, tries to brief him on the legal implications, pointing out that the ruling is based on the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, an old statute that the judge has applied to the current situation. However, Trump is not impressed by the legal citation. He dismisses it, saying he understands the historical context, but views it as a tactic to undermine his authority and rile up public outrage. As Trump continues, it becomes clear that he feels the judicial branch is deliberately trying to thwart his policies and challenge his administration's agenda. He holds up a thick binder filled with immigration policies, court transcripts, and policy maps. His voice grows more intense as he stands up, speaking about how his administration is being cornered. "They're daring me to cross a line," he says, accusing the courts of setting him up to look like a dictator if he takes any drastic action in retaliation. The tension is palpable as Trump refuses to back down. In his mind, the situation isn't just about a legal decision, it's about control and the courts trying to block the will of the people who voted for him. To him, the ruling isn't about justice. It's a strategic move designed to disrupt his agenda and undermine his presidency. His senior advisor, Pam Bondi, enters the room with a grim update. The ruling is not just affecting El Paso, but other cities such as Boston, Tucson, and Brownsville, where flights and immigration enforcement are being impacted. The message is clear. Immigration law enforcement is being hampered at multiple levels, and the situation is escalating. Despite the growing pressure, Trump remains resolute. His anger isn't just directed at Judge Boasberg, but at the broader judicial system that he believes is overstepping its bounds. He resolves to take the next step and challenge the system head-on. Trump's response to the ruling quickly shifts from frustration with the courts to a direct confrontation with Chief Justice John Roberts. Trump makes it clear that he isn't just challenging a ruling. He's calling out the entire judicial system, specifically targeting Roberts. He is determined to not let the courts operate in the shadows of anonymity or political influence. His anger is no longer directed solely at the individual judge who issued the injunction, but at the broader judiciary, which he sees as blocking his ability to implement the policies that the American people voted for. In the Oval Office, Trump makes his intentions known to his advisors and staff, saying, "If Roberts wants to protect that system, then let him defend it publicly." The air is thick with tension as Trump makes it clear that he is not going to sit idly by while the courts potentially derail his presidency. Instead of a usual tweet, he decides on a much bolder approach. He will force the issue into the public spotlight. Trump then lays out his plan. He is going to challenge Roberts directly and call for a national discussion on judicial accountability. He picks up a printout of Judge Bosberg's order and holds it up like a piece of evidence in a courtroom, declaring that this is no longer just about legal rulings. It's about the court's overreach and its ability to wield power unchecked. Let's see if they still believe in transparency when the lights are on and the cameras are rolling, Trump says, hinting at the public spectacle he plans to orchestrate. Trump is not only defying the legal system but also pushing for a televised confrontation where Roberts and the other justices will be forced to explain themselves publicly. He views this as a test of the judiciary's legitimacy, suggesting that if Roberts believes the court is above public scrutiny, he should have the courage to face the nation and defend his actions. Trump wants to put Roberts on the spot, forcing the Chief Justice to publicly explain and defend his decisions, thus exposing the court's inner workings to the American people. His advisors are concerned about the potential backlash. They know that this could be seen as politicizing the judiciary, but Trump is resolute. He insists that this isn't an act of politicization. It's an effort to expose the truth about a judicial system that has, in his eyes, become disconnected from the will of the people. The American people didn't vote for federal judges, they voted for a president, he asserts, making it clear that he believes the judicial branch should not operate in isolation from the democratic process. Trump is ready to face the storm that will follow, fully aware that this move will likely escalate tensions between the executive and judicial branches. Yet, in his mind, this is about more than a legal battle. It's about ensuring that the people's voice is not drowned out by a group of unelected judges who are, according to him, trying to hijack the political process. As Trump prepares to escalate his confrontation with the judiciary, his advisors begin to weigh in on the consequences of such a bold move. They know that calling out Chief Justice John Roberts publicly and challenging the courts directly could have serious political ramifications. In the midst of the rising tensions, Trump's comments take a sharper turn toward a potential impeachment threat. The response from Roberts comes swiftly, as the Chief Justice issues a statement rejecting Trump's call for impeachment, which he deems an inappropriate response to a legal disagreement. In his statement, Roberts defends the independence of the judiciary, emphasizing that courts must remain impartial and free from political pressure, even when their rulings are unpopular. He argues that the role of the judiciary is to temper public passion and ensure that laws are applied fairly and consistently, regardless of political ramifications. Roberts stresses that the judiciary is not a rescue vehicle for stalled policies, nor a tool for advancing political agendas. Trump, however, is undeterred. In his view, Roberts' response is nothing more than a deflection, an attempt to protect an insulated system of judges who, in his opinion, are acting as a veto power over the will of the people. He criticizes the idea of judicial independence as a shield for unelected judges to impose their views without facing any accountability. Trump argues that judges have become too powerful and are blocking legitimate actions taken by elected officials. His frustration grows as he believes that judicial overreach is a direct challenge to his presidential authority and to the will of the voters who elected him to enact change. The situation intensifies as the conversation shifts from the legal technicalities to a more visceral clash of principles. Trump's team, including his legal advisors and political allies, begin to strategize how to push back against what they see as an entrenched system that has been operating with little regard for the democratic process. They begin to discuss potential legislative solutions, including ways to limit the power of judges and speed up the review of nationwide injunctions, which are seen as a major obstacle to the administration's agenda. Amidst all this, Trump's thoughts are unwavering. He will not sit back and allow unelected judges to block his policies without consequences. He believes that impeachment is merely a starting point for confronting the judiciary, but the real battle is one of public perception and legislative reform. Trump's goal is to force the issue into the national spotlight, to make the judiciary's actions transparent, and to hold judges accountable for their decisions. In his mind, this isn't just about one judge or one ruling. It's about ensuring that the people's voice, through their elected officials, remains the ultimate authority in the country. The ongoing legal battle becomes symbolic of a larger struggle between the branches of government and the balance of power, with Trump positioning himself as the defender of democracy against an overreaching judiciary. The idea of impeachment hangs in the air, but the real fight, Trump believes, will be over the fundamental principles of who truly holds the power in America. As the legal battle over Trump's border policies and judicial decisions intensifies, he escalates his challenge to the judiciary by announcing plans to hold a public summit. A bold, historic confrontation with the Supreme Court. This isn't just a speech or press conference. Trump wants a high-stakes, televised event that will force the judiciary to face the American people directly. The stakes are high, and the potential consequences of this summit are far-reaching. Trump's plan is simple but audacious. He is calling for a national judicial reform summit to be held inside the very chambers of the Supreme Court, a move that is unprecedented in American history. He wants the cameras rolling, and he wants transparency. This summit would be different from anything the country has ever seen before. A sitting president engaging directly with the judiciary, not through legal briefs or lawyers, but in front of the entire nation. Trump makes it clear that his goal is not just to challenge the ruling of one judge or to air grievances with a single decision. It's about confronting the entire system and demanding accountability from the highest levels of government. The implications of such an event are immense. By proposing the summit, Trump is not only questioning the actions of individual judges, but he is calling into question the legitimacy of the judicial branch as a whole. His message is clear. If the courts are going to block policies that the American people support, then the American people deserve to see how the judiciary operates, and they deserve to know who is making these decisions. Trump views the summit as an opportunity to expose what he believes to be the court's unchecked power, and to make the judiciary accountable to the public in a way that has never been done before. There's a sense of both excitement and apprehension in the room as Trump lays out his vision to his team. He insists that the event must be completely open, with no filters or redactions. No statements, no redacted footnotes, he says. I want faces. I want accountability. Trump is keen to make it clear that this summit is not about playing to political narratives or attempting to create sound bites. Instead, he wants to put the justices in a position where they have to answer for their decisions. Not behind closed doors, but in the full light of public scrutiny. His advisors, including Pam Bondi, are concerned about the risks involved. They know this is a dramatic move, one that could either embolden Trump's supporters or deepen divisions within the country. But they also recognize that this is exactly the kind of confrontation Trump thrives in. The summit is set to be a national spectacle, one that could change the political landscape and reshape the relationship between the branches of government forever. The media quickly picks up on the invitation to the summit. News outlets from across the country are buzzing with the announcement. Trump's team works tirelessly to prepare for the event, ensuring everything will be ready. The logistics of holding a televised event inside the Supreme Court are enormous, involving security clearances, sound checks, and coordination with media outlets, all while maintaining the sanctity and historical nature of the court itself. Reporters, analysts, and political experts are eager to cover the summit, but they are also unsure of what to expect. For many, this event represents a fundamental shift in how the executive and judicial branches interact. The summit becomes a symbol of the battle for power between the branches of government. It's no longer just about immigration policy or judicial rulings. It's about the very nature of the system of checks and balances in the U.S. government. Trump, ever confident, is prepared for the fallout, knowing that this summit will force the issue into the public consciousness in a way that few events have before. As the day of the summit draws closer, the sense of anticipation builds. In the back of Trump's mind, he's not just hoping for a good performance, he's hoping to change the game. This is no longer about a single issue or a specific case. It's about the future of American democracy, the power of the people, and the role of the judiciary in the balance of power. As the day of the National Judicial Reform Summit approaches, preparations ramp up, and the significance of the event becomes increasingly clear. The summit isn't just another political event. It's a carefully orchestrated moment that Trump believes will shift the balance of power in Washington, D.C. His team moves swiftly, planning every detail of the summit, knowing that this event will be watched by millions of Americans and broadcast globally. Trump's advisors, including Pam Bondi and Carolyn Driscoll, work around the clock to ensure everything is in place. They prepare security protocols, draft press releases, and finalize the media credentials for hundreds of reporters, eager to get access to the historic event. The news spreads like wildfire. The summit will take place live within the Supreme Court chambers, an unprecedented move that promises to reshape the future of American governance. The logistics of hosting a live summit in the Supreme Court are immense. Federal marshals, the Secret Service, Capitol Police, and other security agencies are brought in to ensure the safety of the president and all attendees. Media outlets from across the world request access, hoping to cover the historic confrontation. International journalists seek floor access, as this event represents a rare moment of direct public engagement between the president and the highest court in the land. The anticipation grows, and every corner of the political world braces for what's to come. As preparations intensify, Trump remains focused on his goal: to make this summit a public reckoning for the judiciary. He wants the justices to face the reality of their decisions, live and on record, with the nation watching. His aides are aware that this could be a political gamble. There's no telling how the justices will react or how the American people will perceive the event. But Trump is confident that this is the right course of action. This isn't just politics, it's a national spectacle. Pam Bondi reflects as she reviews security and media requests. She knows that the summit has the potential to either solidify Trump's authority or further antagonize the judiciary. In the days leading up to the event, a sense of historical weight hangs over the White House. The preparations are not just about setting up a physical space, they're about setting the stage for a confrontation that could change the political dynamic in the U.S. forever. The media coverage is already intense, with outlets speculating on the nature of the summit and what Trump intends to achieve. Many are already calling it an audacious move, as it marks a direct challenge to the established norms of American governance. While Trump is fully aware of the potential backlash, he is determined to push forward. His team works on crafting the narrative. This is not a stunt. This is a necessary act of transparency. Trump insists that the American people deserve to see how the judiciary operates and that the courts must be held accountable. It's no longer enough to question the actions of a single judge or a single ruling. Trump wants to expose the entire system, showing the public exactly how the courts are functioning and who is pulling the strings. As the night before the summit arrives, Trump stands alone in the East Room of the White House, reviewing his notes. There's no speechwriter involved this time. These are his words, his thoughts, and his message to the nation. His advisors, Pam and Carolyn, walk in to make final adjustments. They reassure him that everything is set, but Trump remains focused on his ultimate goal. "Tomorrow, America hears what they weren't supposed to," he says, knowing that this summit will not just be a political battle, it will be a national awakening. The preparations are complete, the media is ready, and the stage is set for what promises to be one of the most consequential political events in recent history. The summit will not only address judicial overreach, but will challenge the very fabric of the checks and balances that define the U.S. government. As the date for the National Judicial Reform Summit draws nearer, Chief Justice John Roberts and the other justices are faced with an unprecedented dilemma. Trump's invitation to the summit has set the stage for an intense and highly publicized confrontation, and the justices must decide how to respond to the president's call. The invitation isn't just a routine request. It's a challenge to the very core of judicial independence and the role of the Supreme Court in American democracy. Roberts, known for his calm demeanor and careful handling of the judiciary's image, gathers with Justices Linda Yang, Edward Salazar, and Ketanji Brown Jackson to discuss the implications of attending the summit. The justices understand the gravity of the situation, as the summit could very well turn into a public spectacle that shakes the foundations of judicial authority. Roberts, in particular, is aware that the court's long-standing tradition of operating behind closed doors and maintaining a neutral, reserved presence in public life is now being directly challenged. The discussions behind closed doors are tense, as each justice weighs the potential fallout of attending the summit. Justices Yang, Salazar, and Jackson express concerns about the spectacle that Trump is trying to create. Yang, in particular, questions the propriety of attending a live televised confrontation, noting that it would break with centuries of legal tradition. "This has never been done," she says, frowning. "Are we really going to allow the court to be used as a political stage?" Salazar shares her concerns, worried that such an event could make the court seem partisan or undignified. However, Roberts remains focused on the bigger picture, the preservation of the court's credibility and its role as an impartial check on executive power. He knows that refusing to attend could give Trump the upper hand by framing the judiciary as evasive or unwilling to face public scrutiny. The public perception of the court could shift drastically if the justices decline to appear, allowing Trump to spin the narrative that the judiciary is hiding behind its robes and avoiding accountability. After considering the potential consequences, Roberts finally looks up at the other justices and makes a decision. "We attend," he says firmly. "If we refuse, we hand him the narrative that we're hiding, that we're afraid." His words are measured but decisive. The justices agree that the court must face Trump head-on, even if it means participating in a political spectacle. The judiciary's independence, Roberts argues, must be maintained not through silence and avoidance, but through reasoned, measured responses that demonstrate the court's commitment to upholding the law, even in the face of political pressure. Roberts' response reflects his deep understanding of the importance of maintaining the judiciary's integrity. He knows that, despite the potential for spectacle, the court's credibility is rooted in its commitment to upholding the rule of law and its responsibility to temper political passions with impartiality. In the coming days, the justices prepare for what will likely be an unprecedented public confrontation, one that will test the boundaries of judicial authority and the very nature of the relationship between the branches of government. Despite the internal debates, the justices agree that their presence at the summit is necessary. By attending, they hope to bring the focus back to the court's role in interpreting the law, not as a political tool, but as an essential safeguard of the Constitution. For Roberts, the decision to attend is not a concession, but a strategic choice. To face Trump's challenge directly, calmly and with dignity, in order to preserve the court's credibility and maintain its position as the ultimate arbiter of constitutional issues in the United States. The day of the National Judicial Reform Summit arrives, and the stage is set for a confrontation that has never been seen before in American history. The Supreme Court chamber is transformed into a live broadcast setting, with cameras rolling and the nation's eyes trained on the proceedings. The summit is not just an event, it's a moment of reckoning for both the judiciary and the executive branch. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation, as the nation braces for what promises to be a defining moment in the ongoing battle between President Trump and the judiciary. As Trump enters the Supreme Court chamber, there is no teleprompter, no polished speeches, just him, his thoughts, and the message he intends to deliver. He walks into the room with the confidence of a man who is ready to confront the establishment head-on. Under one arm, he carries a slim leather folder containing the documents and evidence that will be central to his argument. His posture is strong, unyielding, and the look in his eyes reflects a man ready for a fight that he believes is necessary for the future of American democracy. Across from him sits Chief Justice John Roberts, flanked by Justices Linda Yang, Edward Salazar, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. The justices are dressed in their black robes, their faces unreadable, their hands clasped in front of them in the traditional judicial manner. They sit like statues, calm and measured, prepared for what is about to unfold, but their silence speaks volumes. The tension in the room is palpable as Trump scans the room and begins to speak, addressing the court and, through them, the entire nation. Trump's opening remarks are pointed and direct. He starts by acknowledging the gravity of the situation, remarking that when he swore to defend the country, he never expected to be standing in a room like this, speaking not to foreign enemies but to a group of judges who have, in his view, overstepped their bounds. He holds up the printout of Judge Boasberg's order, the very order that has sparked this confrontation, and he accuses the judiciary of using its power to block his policies before they even take effect. "This isn't law," he declares. "This is leverage." Trump's tone is steady but charged, his message clear. The courts are no longer serving justice, but actively undermining the will of the American people. He turns to Chief Justice Roberts directly, calling out the court's refusal to act on his administration's policies. "When we enforce the law anyway," Trump says, "we're accused of bad faith. But how long do we wait when judges erase policies before they're even implemented?" The question hangs in the air, and the cameras capture the Chief Justice's slight adjustment of his glasses, but Roberts does not respond immediately. Trump's words have struck at the heart of the matter: judicial overreach and the unchecked power of unelected judges. As Trump continues, his frustration with the judiciary becomes more apparent. He argues that the court is not simply interpreting the law. It is making policy decisions that should be left to the elected branches of government. This country wasn't built so 700 unelected lawyers could rule it from behind closed doors, he says, his voice growing more intense. He challenges the notion of judicial neutrality, suggesting that when judges can block policies based on personal or political considerations, they are no longer impartial. They are participants in the political process. Trump's challenge to Roberts becomes even more personal as he speaks directly to the Chief Justice. "Chief Justice," he says, "I say this with respect for your position, but not for your doctrine." He argues that when judges act in isolation, without accountability to the people, they are essentially surrendering their responsibility to uphold the Constitution. To Trump, the judiciary is not neutral. It is actively engaged in a power struggle, using its authority to block the will of the people. The tension in the room reaches its peak as Trump pulls out a copy of the Declaration of Independence, holding it up for the cameras. This document didn't create kings, he states. It dismantled them. His message is clear. If the judiciary is allowed to continue unchecked, it will create a form of judicial monarchy that undermines the democratic process. The room falls into silence as Trump's words resonate with the audience. The cameras zoom in on the document. The camera feeds, cutting between Trump's face and the faces of the justices, capturing the weight of the moment. For Trump, this summit is not just about defending his policies. It's about redefining the relationship between the branches of government. He wants to expose what he sees as a system that has grown too comfortable in its power, too insulated from the people it is supposed to serve. "We're giving the power back," he declares, and this is the moment. As the summit unfolds, it becomes clear that the battle is not just about a single issue or a specific case. It's a symbolic confrontation over who controls the levers of power in the United States. The summit is, in many ways, a referendum on the future of American democracy, with Trump positioning himself as the defender of the people's will against an entrenched, unelected judiciary. The implications of this showdown will resonate far beyond the walls of the Supreme Court. The world is watching, and the fate of the American political system seems to hang in the balance. As the summit continues, Trump's challenge to the judiciary grows more pointed and confrontational. He is no longer merely defending his policies or arguing against a single ruling. He is engaging in a direct battle for the very authority of the judiciary. His message is clear. The courts, in his view, have become too powerful, too insulated, and too out of touch with the will of the people. Trump's rhetoric shifts from a critique of a single judge or ruling to a broader attack on the judicial system itself. He argues that the judiciary's role in interpreting the law has morphed into something much more dangerous, a system that actively interferes with the elected government's ability to carry out its agenda. The president asserts that the courts, particularly in cases like Judge Boasberg's injunction, have used judicial review not as a safeguard of constitutional rights, but as a tool for blocking policies that do not align with their personal or ideological beliefs. Trump's attack on judicial overreach is relentless. He accuses the courts of subverting the democratic process, saying that when unelected judges can overrule the actions of elected officials, it undermines the very foundation of democracy. How is this still democracy? Trump asks, if one unelected judge can erase the vote of millions of Americans with a single decision. He highlights the fact that judges are appointed for life, without the accountability that comes with being elected by the people. In his view, this creates an imbalance of power, where the judiciary wields significant influence over policy without any recourse for voters to hold them accountable. The president's challenge intensifies as he speaks directly to the justices present in the room, particularly Chief Justice Roberts. Trump makes it clear that he holds the judiciary responsible for stalling progress and preventing the will of the people from being enacted. He points to the court's refusal to allow his immigration policies to move forward, accusing them of using their power to block executive actions, rather than interpret the law impartially. Trump also takes aim at the very concept of judicial independence, which Roberts and other justices have long defended as essential to the integrity of the court. He argues that judicial independence should not mean immunity from scrutiny or criticism. To Trump, it has become a shield for judges to act without fear of consequences, hiding behind their robes and the tradition of judicial restraint, while blocking policies that have broad public support. He's challenging the idea that judges are beyond reproach simply because they wear robes and hold lifetime appointments. The tension in the room is palpable as Trump presses his argument, accusing the judiciary of attempting to rewrite the Constitution to fit their own agendas. He pulls out another document, the Declaration of Independence, pointing to it as the founding document that dismantled the concept of kings and tyranny. "This document didn't create kings," Trump declares. "It dismantled them. And if we allow the judiciary to rule without consequences, then we have replaced elected officials with a new class of rulers." As Trump makes his case, the justices remain calm and measured, offering no immediate response. Chief Justice Roberts, in particular, maintains his reserved posture, carefully considering the words being spoken. The camera zooms in on Roberts' face, capturing his stoic expression. For a moment, the court is silent, caught between the weight of Trump's accusations and the obligation to maintain its dignity in the face of public challenge. Trump is aware that his words are cutting deep. He's not merely questioning the authority of the courts, he's undermining their legitimacy, challenging the foundation of their power. His language is sharp, almost accusatory, as he frames the judicial system not as a guardian of democracy, but as a force that has corrupted the system for its own benefit. "I was elected to do a job," Trump says, "and I'm not going to let a bench full of cloaked activists override the people who put me here." His declaration makes it clear. For him, this is not about one policy or one judge. It's about the larger question of who holds the power in the United States. He believes that if judges can block the actions of an elected president, then the balance of power has shifted in a dangerous direction. As the summit progresses, it's evident that Trump's confrontation with the judiciary is not just a political maneuver. It's a larger ideological struggle over the future of American democracy. It's a battle for control over the direction of the country, with Trump positioning himself as the defender of the people's will against a judicial system he views as overstepping its bounds. This is no longer just about legal disagreements. It's about a clash of visions for how power should be distributed in a democratic society. With every word, Trump escalates the challenge. He makes it clear that if the judiciary does not reform and become more accountable to the people, it risks losing its legitimacy. "The people are tired of being silenced by unelected officials," Trump says, "and I won't stand for it. This is our republic, and we are going to take it back." The National Judicial Reform Summit reverberates across the nation, igniting a firestorm of media coverage and public debate. The media outlets, already on edge after Trump's invitation to the Supreme Court, are now fully immersed in the drama as it unfolds live on television. Every moment of the summit is captured, dissected, and analyzed, with each side of the political spectrum framing the confrontation in its own way. From the moment Trump steps up to the podium, the media coverage is intense. News channels like CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC broadcast the summit in real time, offering their own interpretations of what is happening. CNN calls it an audacious move, framing it as an unprecedented challenge to judicial independence, while Fox News highlights Trump's bold stance on judicial accountability, praising him for forcing a long-overdue conversation on the power of the courts. Meanwhile, MSNBC refers to the summit as a stunt, criticizing Trump for politicizing the judiciary and warning about the long-term dangers of undermining the court's credibility. The reactions on social media are just as divided. Trump's supporters rally behind him, praising the summit as a bold stand for the people's will and against judicial overreach. They see the confrontation as a long-awaited challenge to a system they believe has become too powerful and unaccountable. For many of his followers, the summit is a symbolic moment where a sitting president directly confronts the judiciary, an institution they feel has repeatedly stood in the way of policies that resonate with middle America. Trump's words about giving the power back resonate deeply with his base, and social media platforms erupt with support for his message. On the other side of the debate, Opponents of Trump accuse him of undermining the constitutional system of checks and balances. Legal experts, Democrats, and even some moderate Republicans express concern that Trump's actions could set a dangerous precedent for executive overreach. Editorials and think pieces appear in major newspapers warning of the erosion of judicial independence and the potential consequences of a politicized judiciary. Critics argue that Trump's challenge to the judiciary is a direct attack on the rule of law and the separation of powers, core principles that are supposed to protect the integrity of American democracy. Public opinion also begins to shift in response to the summit. While the media is split, the American people are deeply divided. For some, Trump's words resonate as a necessary call for reform, a correction of a system they believe has been hijacked by an out-of-touch elite. Polls taken after the summit show a sharp increase in support for judicial reform and greater oversight of the courts. In areas where Trump's support is strong, people praise the president for standing up to a judiciary they feel has been obstructing his agenda for years. However, in more liberal areas, the summit is viewed with skepticism, and the backlash grows. Protests erupt in various cities, with demonstrators showing up in front of the Supreme Court and other federal buildings, demanding judicial independence and decrying Trump's actions as an attack on democracy. Many see the summit as a spectacle designed to undermine the courts and create division, rather than a genuine effort to bring about meaningful reform. Legal experts and constitutional scholars worry about the implications of Trump's actions on the future of the judiciary, with some even predicting long-term harm to the country's legal system. Despite the polarized reactions, one thing is clear. The summit has sparked a national conversation about the role of the judiciary in American government. People across the country are now questioning the power of the courts and whether they should be held more accountable for their decisions. This debate is no longer confined to political insiders and legal experts. It is now a front and center issue in American politics, one that will likely influence future elections and shape public discourse for years to come. The summit has not only raised questions about judicial power, it has reignited the broader conversation about the balance of power between the branches of government. Some Americans feel that the judiciary has become too powerful and unaccountable, while others believe that Trump's actions could lead to dangerous authoritarianism. The next chapter in this debate will likely unfold in the halls of Congress, where lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are already calling for action on judicial reform. For Trump, however, the summit is just the beginning. He is fully aware that the media and public reactions will continue to evolve, but he is resolute in his belief that he has forced a necessary conversation. In the aftermath of the summit, he doesn't celebrate a victory. Instead, he sees it as the opening salvo in a long-term fight to reshape the relationship between the executive and judicial branches. What began as a confrontation over a specific court ruling has evolved into a broader ideological struggle over the future of American democracy and the role of the judiciary in shaping it. As the dust settles, one thing is certain. The National Judicial Reform Summit has changed the political landscape, and the question of judicial accountability will be at the forefront of American politics for the foreseeable future. The summit has not only challenged the courts, but has ignited a nationwide debate that will continue to resonate far beyond the walls of the Supreme Court. In the wake of the National Judicial Reform Summit, Trump's team begins to focus on turning the momentum from the summit into concrete legislative action. Trump's challenge to the judiciary, especially his accusations of judicial overreach and calls for greater accountability, have sparked intense discussions about reforming the judicial system. Within hours of the summit's conclusion, lawmakers and legal experts are already considering ways to address the growing concerns over judicial power and transparency. One of the first actions taken is the drafting of a bill aimed at reforming the process of judicial injunctions. The proposed legislation, which becomes known as the Judicial Accountability Act, is designed to curb what Trump and his allies see as the unchecked power of the courts to issue nationwide injunctions that block executive orders before they can take effect. The bill proposes a more stringent set of guidelines for when and how nationwide injunctions can be issued, along with mandatory review timelines and greater public access to court records related to emergency rulings. The goal is to create a system where judicial actions are subject to more oversight and are less likely to be used to block policies that have widespread support. Senator Felix Morton, a staunch ally of Trump from Florida, introduces the bill on the steps of the Capitol, with cameras flashing and reporters from across the country in attendance. The proposal quickly gains traction, and within a matter of days, a bipartisan coalition begins to form around the idea. While the bill is seen as a direct response to the judiciary's actions during the Trump administration, it also reflects a growing concern among certain lawmakers about the power of the courts to shape national policy. The legislative effort gained support not just from Republicans but from some Democrats and moderates who have expressed concerns about judicial overreach in recent years. Elon Musk, always quick to seize on political and technological opportunities, launches his own initiative to complement the legislative push, Courtlight. This new digital tool is designed to bring greater transparency to the judicial system by tracking federal judges' active rulings against executive authority in real time. Musk's initiative allows the public to see exactly which judges are blocking policies and provides detailed profiles of those judges, including their past decisions, the nature of the injunctions, and any public comments or ratings from citizens. It's an effort to create a form of court accountability, where voters can directly observe the impact of judicial decisions on national policies. The Courtlight tool quickly becomes popular, with millions of Americans downloading the app and using it to track judicial decisions. Some view it as a powerful tool for transparency, allowing citizens to see how their elected leaders' actions are being blocked by judges. Others, however, see it as a potential weapon for politicizing the judiciary, with some critics warning that it could lead to a star chamber atmosphere where judges are subjected to public pressure and public opinion, potentially undermining their independence. The launch of the Judicial Accountability Act and the Courtlight Initiative signals the beginning of a new phase in the political battle between the executive and judicial branches. The reform efforts come in the wake of Trump's public confrontation with the courts, and they reflect his broader goal of reducing the influence of unelected judges. Trump's allies push hard for the legislation's passage, while critics argue that it could fundamentally undermine the independence of the judiciary and lead to politicized decision-making. For Trump, the Judicial Accountability Act is not just about immediate policy changes. It's about setting a new tone for the relationship between the branches of government. He wants to make it clear that while the judiciary has an important role to play in upholding the Constitution, it should not have the power to block the will of the people and the policies of elected officials without consequence. His ultimate aim is to ensure that the courts are held to account for their actions and that they do not operate as an unchecked political force. As the bill makes its way through Congress, there are heated debates and amendments, but it remains a central focus of Trump's agenda. The idea of judicial reform has captured the public's imagination, with discussions about the balance of power between the branches of government taking center stage. With the passage of the Judicial Accountability Act, Trump believes that the relationship between the branches will be reset, and that the judiciary will no longer be able to block the actions of an elected president without facing scrutiny and public pressure. Despite the obstacles ahead, Trump is determined to push forward with his vision of a more accountable judiciary. His administration has now laid the groundwork for a legislative and technological revolution in the way the judicial system operates in America. Whether these efforts will succeed or face fierce opposition from the judiciary and its supporters remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. The question of judicial power and accountability has moved to the forefront of the national debate. Trump has set the stage for a historic shift in how the American people view their courts and how the courts view their own power. The fallout from the National Judicial Reform Summit continues to unfold as the nation grapples with the implications of Trump's direct challenge to the judiciary. While the summit itself may have lasted only a few hours, the conversation it sparked has continued to reverberate throughout American politics. The public is now forced to confront a question that has been simmering for years. What role should the judiciary play in shaping the direction of the country, and who ultimately holds the power in a democracy? Trump's critics, particularly those in the legal community, warn that his confrontation with the judiciary marks a dangerous turning point in American democracy. Legal scholars and constitutional experts express deep concern that his efforts to undermine judicial independence could set a precedent for future presidents to challenge or even ignore judicial rulings that they disagree with. The American Bar Association and other legal organizations release statements defending the separation of powers and judicial independence, emphasizing that the courts are essential in providing checks on the power of the executive. On the other hand, Trump's supporters see the summit and his legislative efforts as a long overdue corrective to a system that has, in their view, become too powerful and disconnected from the will of the people. For many, the notion that a small group of unelected judges could block the policies of a democratically elected president strikes at the heart of democratic accountability. Trump's message, that the judiciary should be more transparent and accountable to the American public, resonates with his base, particularly those who feel that the government has become too entrenched and unresponsive to the needs of ordinary citizens. The debate over judicial power quickly becomes a central issue in American politics. It spills over into congressional elections, with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle now forced to take a position on judicial reform. Some conservative lawmakers who have long called for greater oversight of the courts find themselves emboldened, pushing for more aggressive measures to limit the influence of the judiciary. Meanwhile, progressive lawmakers push back, arguing that judicial independence is a cornerstone of American democracy and must be protected at all costs. In the wake of the summit, the media landscape becomes more polarized than ever. Trump's allies in the media, particularly conservative outlets like Fox News, celebrate his actions as a bold stand for the American people. They emphasize the idea that the judiciary has grown too powerful and unaccountable, and that Trump is simply standing up for the voters who elected him to enact change. On the other hand, liberal media outlets, including MSNBC and the New York Times, decry Trump's actions as an attack on the rule of law and the separation of powers, warning that his rhetoric and legislative efforts could lead to a dangerous erosion of judicial independence. As the debate rages on, a growing number of Americans find themselves questioning the long-standing institutions and systems that have traditionally defined American governance. The judiciary, once seen as the impartial guardian of the Constitution, is now at the center of a political battle, with many Americans wondering whether it can still be trusted to act as an independent arbiter of the law. This shift in the political landscape also extends to how Americans view the relationship between the three branches of government. The executive branch, long seen as the most visible and active branch of government, now stands at the center of a power struggle with the judiciary. Trump's direct challenge to the courts has forced many to reconsider the balance of power between the branches, with some arguing that the judiciary has become too insulated from the public and too prone to overreach. Meanwhile, Trump's efforts to reshape the judiciary are not just limited to public rhetoric or legislative initiatives. The president continues to nominate conservative judges at a rapid pace, reshaping the federal judiciary for generations to come. With the support of Senate Republicans, Trump has succeeded in appointing numerous judges to the lower courts, further consolidating conservative influence within the judiciary. His long-term strategy is clear. By stacking the courts with judges who share his views, he hopes to solidify his vision of government for years to come, even if he is no longer in office. The political landscape is undeniably shifting, and the repercussions of Trump's actions are only beginning to be fully understood. Whether or not his push for judicial reform will succeed, one thing is certain. The issue of judicial power and accountability has entered the national conversation in a way it never has before. The balance of power between the branches of government is now more fluid, more contested, and more uncertain than at any point in recent history. As this debate continues to unfold, Americans find themselves grappling with a deeper question. What kind of democracy do they want to live in? Is it one where power is distributed evenly across the branches of government? Or is it one where unelected judges, insulated from public accountability, can wield enormous influence over the policies of an elected president? The answer to that question will shape the future of American politics and governance for generations to come. The National Judicial Reform Summit and the events that followed have left an indelible mark on American political discourse. Trump's direct confrontation with the judiciary has not only sparked widespread debate about the role of the courts in American democracy, but also set in motion a series of actions that have fundamentally reshaped the relationship between the executive branch and the judiciary. This moment, one of the most dramatic in recent political history, has raised questions about judicial power, accountability, and the balance of power in government, questions that will continue to dominate the political landscape for years to come. For Trump, the summit wasn't just about winning a specific policy battle or confronting a particular judge. It was a challenge to the very foundation of judicial authority, a call for transparency, and a demand for accountability from an unelected body that many Americans, particularly his supporters, see as obstructing the will of the people. Trump's rhetoric and actions have galvanized a growing movement that seeks to limit the influence of the judiciary, particularly in cases where judicial rulings appear to thwart the policies of a democratically elected president. However, the confrontation with the judiciary has also stirred a strong pushback from those who view the independence of the courts as essential to the preservation of the rule of law and the Constitution. Legal scholars, civil rights groups, and liberal lawmakers argue that Trump's challenge represents a dangerous erosion of democratic norms, with the potential to undermine the system of checks and balances that has been a cornerstone of American government for centuries. In the months following the summit, both the Judicial Accountability Act and the Courtlight Initiative face intense scrutiny. While Trump's allies push hard for judicial reform, the proposal remains contentious, with fierce debates about its potential consequences for judicial independence and the future of the American legal system. The legislative battle continues to play out on Capitol Hill, with lawmakers from both parties deeply divided over the future of judicial power. Yet, despite the controversy, one thing is clear: the summit has forced a national conversation that cannot be easily dismissed. Americans are now more aware than ever of the role that the judiciary plays in shaping the nation's policies, and many are questioning whether the current system strikes the right balance between judicial authority and democratic accountability. The judicial system, once seen as an impartial arbiter of the law, is now at the heart of a political struggle that transcends party lines. Ultimately, the question that Trump posed during the summit, who really runs this country, remains unanswered. In many ways, this question reflects the tension that defines the current state of American governance. The executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary all claim their own authority and legitimacy, but the growing divide between them suggests that power is more fragmented than ever. As the country moves forward, The legacy of this summit will be felt for years to come. Whether or not Trump's reforms succeed, the national conversation about the power of the judiciary and the role of the courts in American democracy will continue to shape political debate. The future of American governance may very well depend on how this debate evolves, on how the public, the media, lawmakers, and judges themselves respond to the growing calls for judicial accountability and reform. For now, the storm may have passed, but the questions remain. The American people are left with a crucial decision: how to balance the power of an independent judiciary with the democratic principles that guide the nation. It is a conversation that is far from over, and its resolution will determine the future of America's political system and the ongoing struggle for power and accountability.